Hello again. Welcome to another edition of CropLife Retail Week. Paul Schrimpf, Eric Sfiligoj.
Hello, Paul. Hey, I happen to notice it looks like your undisclosed location is becoming a little more defined.
It's a little, it's a little less obnoxious. I say about 5 feet that way, it's squalor, but here, it's lovely. I decided
it looks very, very nice. Yeah.
Say if a carpenter came in here or a guy who does drywall came in and looked at it, he'd be ashamed of me because you can't see what a middling job it is. But it's in the attic and no one else is up here, so I just, as long as it looks okay in camera, that's all I care.
I was going to say, given the camera view and the lighting you got going on behind you, it looks perfectly fine. Kudos for wearing a white shirt so you do not distract from it at all.
I'm trying. So yeah, this one time. Thank you. Appreciate that. So yesterday was, of course, September 11th, the day that we remember as, now it's the 19th year, year for this anniversary. So I remember we were on our way to Maggie, and you were past halfway and already there, or heading there from Chicago, I know. And we were going to drive in and follow you in afterwards in Cleveland, and it happened. We were going to leave mid-afternoon, and I got after talking to my wife and we pulled our kids out of school and there was so much uncertainty, we just decided not to make the trip. But it soldiered on, and I think spent time with some of the exhibitors and so forth down there, didn't you?
Well, yeah, actually what had happened, I was at the World Fertilizer Congress, which was in Chicago that day, which then got canceled when 9/11 actually took place that morning. So lo and behold, then I got stuck in downtown Chicago. So I ended up catching a ride to Danville at the time, which is where Maggie was held before they moved to Bloomington, with Larry Yargis from what was Yargis Fertilizer at the time. And Larry was kind enough to give me a lift down to Danville, where I hooked up with two of our sales representatives who had gone in a couple of days early to do some golfing with clients in and around the Danville, Illinois area. But I did make it there, and but it was an interesting show. I mean, most people's minds were obviously not on the equipment and the Maggie event as they normally were. And I remember that day I kept trying to make phone calls, trying to reach out to friends and family and let them know it was okay. And I don't think I finally got a call through until about 9:30, 10 o'clock that evening, because I just kept getting busy signals as the cellular networks were overloaded by everyone using the phones all at the same time, all day long.
Yeah, it's still tough to think about the details. I mean, it's easy to kind of gloss over in your mind that, it happened. It was a day, and it was, there's a time when, there was so much uncertainty and so much craziness. But, when you really start thinking about the details, it is amazing, what we ended up going through over those couple of months.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and, parallels, I guess, to 2020, where the, you had an extraordinary event take place, and as everyone reacted, and the domino effects you had from those reactions led to other things taking place, not taking place. It was an interesting few months, like you said, sort of like what we've been living through here since March in 2020 with COVID-19 going on.
Absolutely. So we wanted to acknowledge that and kind of share a couple of memories in that. So I appreciate everyone's gone through this at different levels and at different intensities, but certainly we remember the folks that lost their lives and everything that happened in all those events. So with that, let's go on to the present and some of the things that happened. And of course, everything happens after we put the video to bed, and literally within minutes after putting the video to bed. If you want to start the conversation on that one.
Well, yeah, I know we had hinted, I think, in the videos that we had heard there were rumors of a big ag retailer merger in the offing, and of course we waited to do our video last week until the last minute because we sort of had heard through the grapevine that it wasn't going to take place until this week. And then, like you say, literally 35 minutes after we finished recording last week's video, we found out that there were two cooperatives, actually three if you include the wholesale group, that were getting together. And I know you reached out to a couple of the key players there. So why don't you fill in our viewers on who we're talking about and what they did?
Well, it was Jeff Blair as the CEO of Greenpoint AG who was going to take over the group that was put together, and it's interesting. It's it's a region that probably had more disparate players out there from the standpoint of having competing companies that were large but not necessarily located down there. So now you've
Paul,
got.
You may want to identify who we're talking about here. So.
And we're talking about, well, the Greenpoint AG, and it was the wholesale division of Tennessee Farmers Co-op, Greenpoint, which was an existing cooperative, and Agri AFC, which was a wholly owned division of Winfield and Alabama Farmers Cooperative. We're talking about, I think, 99 outlets that are getting together down there.
Correct.
99 locations. So the fact that we've got kind of a consolidated, super regional focused organization is really interesting. Companies, Greenpoint and Agri AFC, were very much focused on precision technology. So I think, and I talked to Jeff Blair a little bit, and he said that he's very excited about the potential that precision can bring to this combined organization, and it was a really good marriage of organization, really good marriage of companies, because there really wasn't a lot of overlap, and so there won't be a lot of plant closures, there won't be a lot of hard decisions. The other thing that's kind of funny is he was talking about how much easier it is to get the organization moving from a standpoint of communication, because you can use Zoom instead of worrying about slamming all the employees into one location very quickly or moving people around. Everyone working remotely, he's able to meet with people. He had a 40 or 50 person sales call with the Agri AFC folks on a Zoom call. So he was able to make the announcement, introduce himself, talk a little bit about what their future vision is, and so forth. So in a way, that whole social distancing thing actually played to the positive in a consolidation like this. It's never easy, but I think it made it a little bit easier in terms of folks being able to visualize the idea of a remote leadership coming in when you have this kind of remote culture that's already been percolating for a long period of time. So he's on his way down, I think probably the next couple of weeks, and get his role started, although it's already done and moving forward.
Yeah, right. I know that I had read that the headquarters for Greenpoint AG had previously been in Memphis, but now it's going to be down in Alabama, where Agri AFC was located. And they'll have a satellite facility in Memphis, and also another one in Tennessee that was Tennessee Farmers Cooperative Wholesale Group. But yeah, welcome to those guys. And, if you're wondering, that merger is actually effective September 8th. So it is already in the past. So welcome new Greenpoint AG to the market.
Very interesting. So, and then, of course, the other announcement that was really interesting was TerrAvion, which has been kind of a drone imagery company. One that was fairly early and had a fairly substantial, I guess, portfolio of imagery that they were collecting and disseminating, ended up first declaring bankruptcy and then basically just saying they were shuttering things all within a 24-hour period.
It was actually less than that, Paul. I know I got the notice, I think, about 4 o'clock last Friday that TerrAvion had filed Chapter 11 in a Delaware court. And lo and behold, by 7:30 that evening, I got a letter from Robert Morris, the founder CEO, saying, okay, this is, as of today, we are completely shutting down. So I don't think I ever remember a company going from bankruptcy court to out of business completely in such a short amount of time. It wasn't 24 hours. It was about 4 hours. That was just, I think that's a record as far as I know.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. They were, we talked to them a lot. They were really working hard at it. It's not that they didn't have something that I think that was viable. I think you've got a lot of competitors out there. It becomes about the money. It becomes about delivering the profitability. It becomes about really being able to sustain when there's certainly still a number of players out there. A lot of them have exited. It's just a situation where you just can't. You're really close, but you just can't get over the hump. And when the notes are called and things and it's over and the writing's on the wall, sometimes that's the only thing you can do. And you could tell it had to be somewhat bitter. I think the letter, although tried to put as positive a spin on it as possible, Robert really was, I think, extremely disappointed that it couldn't work out. And
Right.
you hate to see that happen, but some of this stuff is going to happen. Some of this stuff is going to go and get washed out. There can only be so many players delivering, and although it seemed like they'd be one of the finishers, they just were not able to finish.
Nope. Well, speaking of money, thank you for the segue. One of the things we obviously always keep track of here is farmer income. And I actually ran across a report this morning that was talking about for 2020, even though we've had COVID and all this uncertainty in the market, that farmer income will be at a 7-year high. And that's mostly thanks in part, Paul, to a lot of federal aid, which to the tune of about a little over $20 billion going into farmers' pockets coming from the federal government. That should help their bottom lines here in 2020. But there is a caveat, a little bit of a warning. The Trump administration has said that at this point, it looks like future aid will be disappearing. So farmers should not expect to be getting such an aid package coming from the federal government going into the 2021 season. So again, we'll have to keep an eye on that as we move forward here through the election cycle.
Yeah, record income and record payments is not a good combination. It's not a good look for ag, unfortunately. Whether or not it's necessary, it's just not a good story. Love to get past that. But yeah, there's the dollars aren't going to be there for anything right now. I think if they're not paying unemployment at this point, I think anyone asking for aid is going to get pushed aside. Until it may, at least for a while. You look at the deficit and you're just stunned about how large this thing has gotten and how out of hand it is right now. So
right,
we'll see, but not good.
All right, and one other thing to share, I haven't shared this with you before we got on camera, so this will be a surprise to you too.
Yay.
First, one of the big stories in 2020 has been COVID-19 and its impact on in-person events throughout 2020. I think basically, as far as I'm aware, other than a few trade events here and there, the majority of things that were on my travel calendar ended up going virtual or were postponed or canceled outright. And I know that you and I have speculated a little bit about, okay, this was 2020. What about 2021? And I know we've heard some rumors regarding some of the events that normally take place in the early part of the calendar. Well, lo and behold, Paul, just before we got on camera, I received a survey from the organizers of the Commodity Classic Show, which will be holding their 25th anniversary event at the end of February in 2021 in San Antonio. And basically, the survey was asking questions like, if we hold this event, will you attend? If you attend, will you wear a mask? And if we don't hold this event, what are your views on holding a virtual Commodity Classic? And would you actually take part in such a venture as that? So again, Paul, this is an event that takes place at the end of February. And already there are some, I suppose, questions among the organizers if they're going to need to consider a different path than an in-person event to hold it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense for folks to be taking surveys, and it's way premature to speculate on what people's reaction is. I think people will be getting to the point of extreme frustration. They get to February and they can't travel, especially something like Commodity Classic that's been kind of a bellwether winter event. I think people will be really, from the standpoint of traveling outside of their immediate circle, be wanting to get out. Companies be wanting to market, but I guess until we get to that point, we really don't know. A survey now is even hard to speculate. I would say, yeah, sure, let's move forward. But once you get to the end of December, early January, and you see where things are, that's going to really tell the tale. So, yeah, I feel bad. They snuck it in last year. I know.
Yeah, it happened literally, I remember I was in San Antonio at their 24th event, And yeah, I mean, myself and a couple of the other folks from CropLife who were coming home, we were basically going to the airport, reading about the fact that COVID was beginning to break out in Texas. At that point, it hadn't reached San Antonio, but it was in other places in Texas, and we were wondering, wow, I mean, literally the day we were leaving, we were getting those news stories were playing on the radio and then local television. So I'm like, okay, but again, it's interesting about this, Paul, because again, Commodity Classics usually much more forward-looking as trade shows go. They have their agendas set years in advance. And I know myself, I usually start getting invites for events being held during that show in late November, early December. And usually about that same time, I've made my hotel and travel arrangements for the event. So a survey going out now makes sense because obviously it gives them about a 2-month window to kind of come to some decision making.
Yeah, I suppose. Although I still wonder how honest people will be at the end of the day, or how honest they can be, because you just don't know what the situation is. Everyone has good intentions. I think everyone certainly wants to get out. I mean, if I'm farming in the Midwest, we're city kids, but if I'm farming in the Midwest and I've been sitting in wintertime in my office or walking around the farm, I want to get the heck out and go enjoy something other than my four walls. So yeah, right. I right now I'd say yes, I'm heading out, but I guess whatever happens this winter will be what tells the tale.
Well, again, we'll be following this as we find out more details from our friends at Commodity Classics. So
yeah. Well, I suspect we did a really long video this time, so we probably should wrap it up, sir. You think?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Well, that's it for this edition of CropLife Retail Week. Thanks for joining us and sticking in there, and we'll see you next week.
If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comment section below.
Your feedback is important to us. We'll try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode.
And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.